everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews. And today we are winding down summer 2023, and we are talking about the box office and, in particular, how bad of predictions we made for the box office in May, this last May. And I'm Rachel Wagner, and Manda is here.
Hey, happy to be here.
And David Rosen is here.
Hey, thanks for having me back on.
I thank you both for coming back on and for doing this, both the early predictions episode. And we even said then that this was a very difficult summer to predict, but I think it was more unpredictable than we could have even predicted.
Yeah. I'm looking at my list and I'm like, I was delusional when I made these picks. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, a couple of mine were like hopeful thinking, but other than that, I was still just completely off. So,
well, none of us did all that great. What I did is I gave everybody 1 point for each movie that you had that was in the top 10 that you had on your list somewhere, right? And then if you got a movie in the right spot, you got 2 points. And so I ended up with 10 points, and Manda ended up with 8 points, and David ended up with 5 points.
Oh,
yeah. Unfortunately, The Blackening did not crack the top 10.
No. The only reason that I ended up with 10 points was because I got the placement right in Spider-Verse and Guardians.
Nice.
That's the only reason. And then Manda got the placement right in Spider-Verse as well. Yeah.
Plus Spider-Verse.
And yeah, so we all got Fast X wrong. We all had that on our list, which was a pretty safe bet.
Right.
And a surprise that it didn't. Yeah, that it didn't make the top 10. For this is domestic, of course.
Sure.
Yes. And it ended up at number 11, which is surprising.
It did make a lot overseas, though,
overseas,
right?
yeah, overseas.
Yeah.
But still, I don't think, because the budget was so insane on that movie.
Yeah.
And I mean, and it's a little bit unfair because all these budgets were super bloated because of COVID and all the protocols and the extended and the waiting and all that stuff. So I think people are being like a little bit unfair, but still, obviously they ballooned way beyond. It's gotten ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like not every movie needs to be a tax shelter. For the studios. I mean, come on.
It's true.
But yeah, so Manda, you had Meg 2, Fast X, and Flash on your list.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I did.
And then I had Fast X and TMNT on my list, and that one ended up at 13. That was a risky pick because it had such a late release that even if it had taken off, would it have enough to count? It's happened before, like Suicide Squad and some other things, but yeah, I mean, it's certainly, I thought it was a great film. I really enjoyed it, and they already have like greenlit sequels and franchises and stuff, so it's fine.
Yeah, it was certainly popular, even if it didn't crack the top 10. So.
Yeah. And then David, you had Flash, Strays, Insidious: The Red Door, The Blackening, and Fast X on your list.
It's a solid list.
Yeah, thank you. I still stand by Insidious: The Red Door. I was surprised didn't do bigger numbers. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see it, but no, I thought it would do well though. Yeah, and I will say, Amanda, you're including Meg 2, which I did not expect anything out of. I loved that movie, and I'm so happy to see that it's done incredibly overseas, and a third one is like all but guaranteed at this point.
Mom, did you see it?
I did not have time to watch the Meg 2.
I didn't see it either.
I did not watch it, but I heard like people had fun with it. It's like a mindless sequel.
No, they didn't. No,
I didn't like the first
only
one.
I did. Only I did. So. Me and my mom had a blast with it, but everybody else hated it. So
I didn't like the first one. So when I heard this one wasn't very good for most people, I was like, because they didn't do a screening, so I'm gonna have to pay out of pocket for it. I'm like, I'm gonna pay $12 to see the Meg 2.
Yeah, that I feel.
Yeah, I paid double, by the way, to see it in 4DX. So
oh my gosh.
Oh boy.
4DX. Were you in one of those seats that move around?
It not only moves around, but every time like
gosh.
Jason Statham's on like the jet ski, you're getting splashed with water, and like it was
Okay, that's
incredible.
fun. It's a roller coaster.
It's
fun.
That sounds like a nightmare to me. I have only done the D-Box one time, and it was for the second Maze Runner movie, and I vowed to never do it again. Ever.
That's a rough one.
Awful.
They run all the time. Yeah. Like they're just running the whole
time. A lot of running.
It was awful. It was horrible.
I did it for, I think, Star Wars. I did it for Rogue One, which was like, that was rocky.
It was like torture. It was absolutely horrible. And then getting sprayed with water, I can't think of anything worse.
It just comes out of nowhere. Like, oh, okay, cool. It's like, it's there. Great.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, you and I, David, were on very different pages with a lot of these movie releases this season as far as quality.
Yeah,
particularly I loved Gran Turismo. I thought it was so much fun. I thought it was so heartwarming. I would left feeling inspired. And then you were like, this is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life.
That movie rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know. I've had many conversations with friends about it. Like something about that movie just feels so phony to me. And I know I'm in the minority, just like I'm in the minority in loving Meg 2. I just did not like Gran Turismo. I'm with you. I like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles though, so I'm with you on that.
Yeah, okay, we're good there.
Yeah.
And then the other one was Strays. And I tell you, in 4 years of being a professional film critic, I've never come closer to walking out of a screening than I was for Strays. That I thought it was I felt like they had two jokes that they just kept repeating over and over and over and over again, and it was so gross and not funny to me. And that whole scene with the getting the key scene, I literally almost threw up in my mouth. It was so disgusting. And I was just like, what am I doing with my life watching this? Miserable. I hated it so much.
That is absolutely fair. I mean, I loved it, but like that is the kind of movie where like if you aren't enjoying yourself within the first 5 minutes, you probably should leave because it's so specific of a thing. It's dogs saying dirty words. Like that's the whole
all
movie.
that they had though. It's what I felt. There's like they like the dick jokes and the dogs saying the F word a lot. I felt like that was all they had.
But it was Jamie Foxx saying the F word as a dog.
He's so good.
Do you like it?
Oh, I was dying. Like it was the highlight of my night, I swear. I think for me, like I totally get where you're coming from, but if it wasn't for Jamie Foxx and Will Ferrell, and like their voices are so distinct and they were like feeding off of each other, if it wasn't for their voice acting, I don't think this film would have been as funny as I found it, to be honest. So it's mainly like a showcase for Ferrell and Fox. So like that's how I interpreted it, but I totally understand. Also, just want to add that there were children in my theater for Strays with their parents. Yeah. So
that's horrible.
So it's dumb. They have a big warning right on the poster.
They don't care. They did the same thing for, I think, Sausage Party. There were kids in Sausage Party, and I advised them not to go. But yeah.
I was just like, it was just not for me. And like, I felt like I went into it being like, okay, this could be a guilty pleasure. I liked Joyride, and that was pretty raunchy. I really found that, like, I liked the friendship theme, and I thought that was genuinely funny. The one other very unpopular opinion that I had this summer is I did not enjoy Bottoms, which pretty much seems like everyone else just loved. And I don't know, it was weird to me because I felt like that there weren't hardly even any jokes attempted. It wasn't like with Strays where I just wasn't laughing at the jokes.
Mhm.
I felt like, again, that with Bottoms, they had kind of one idea that like girls punching each other was inherently funny. So if you didn't find that funny,
Mhm.
then you didn't really get the movie. And I just left being like, what? Like, I felt like, honestly, with just like a few tweaks, it could have actually been like an interesting horror movie, you know, with these girls and getting, you know, so competitive, and I that there was like something darker, interesting in there. But as far as laughs, pretty much the Marshawn Lynch, the coach, to me had the only real laughs. I don't know. I just didn't get it. It was weird. It was like, usually I can leave a movie and be like, okay, I didn't get it, but I understand why other people get it. But that was one where I was just like, I'm really confused. Everyone else loves it, but I was
Everyone's raving about it, and
yeah, it
I
just
also
was
I
not on my wavelength. I
yeah,
don't know. I just didn't
it
get it.
happens. I hate that feeling though, where you're like, you feel like you're all by yourself on your
Yeah.
little lonely island, and you're like, I don't understand why this is like a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes or something.
Yeah,
Like,
that happens sometimes. I will say,
yeah.
Rachel, I'm definitely closer to you on Bottoms than most people. Like
Yeah.
I did enjoy it overall. Like I think I gave it a 3-star rating on Letterboxd. Like I didn't end up doing an episode though of piecing it
Mhm.
together on it, but yeah, I thought it was strangely not as funny as people made it out to be. And like yeah, I don't want to like spoil anything, so maybe I'll
Yeah.
talk to you about it in like another time. But like, yeah, it's just I don't think it goes nearly as far as it kind of thinks it does, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I think people just
Like,
really
I think
wanted to love it.
it gets a lot of traction on the fact that like girls doing violent things is inherently supposed to be funny.
Hmm.
And if you don't
Yeah,
find that funny, like I don't think it's any funnier for girls to do something than boys to do something.
yeah,
And so that if you don't find that sort of more shocking and more funny to have girls doing something versus boys, then it's really, I don't know, a lot of I think that's a big part of the jokes, but I don't know. It's interesting. But if you get to see it, Mondo, you have to tell us what you think.
I will. I missed
Yeah.
it in theaters. It was only like a week that we had it here, but it was in like in one of the indie theaters downtown.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I can't get to it. But
Right.
yeah, I will watch it. I think it's going on digital September 22nd or
Yeah.
something. So I'll definitely catch up.
Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a patron. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
Well, let's move on and talk about the actual 10 that did make it, and where our placements and everything were, and what we thought of the movies. So at number 10, we had The Little Engine That Could. We had Elemental at 10, which I had at 7. And you didn't have Elemental, Manda. But then David, you also had it at 7.
yeah.
So yeah, so this was interesting. I mean, still, I think barely eke out a profit for Pixar because these, Pixar movies are so expensive to make. But it is good to see it have legs and people going to see it. I was pretty underwhelmed by it personally. I mean, it looked beautiful, the animation was great, I thought, but I thought the story was so pedestrian. It didn't really do a whole lot for me, and I didn't feel like they developed the characters very well, and there was like lots of time spent on tangents that I didn't really understand. Why are we spending all this time with them getting permits for and I felt like she started out the movie like perfectly fine running her dad's store, and then by the end he was kind of almost villainized a little bit, like as if he was forcing this on her, and I was kind of like, what? So I don't know. It was, I didn't hate it. It was pretty. but I didn't love it. That's for sure. And I didn't go fresh on it. So
Yeah.
that was me on Elemental. Did you get to see it, Mona?
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I felt like the story was kind of generic and the whole Romeo and Juliet type of thing just didn't sit well with me because it just didn't like
why did
it felt
have all these pipes in Fireland? I didn't even understand.
I know, and like fire and water, like we get it. Thank you. They're polar opposites. I understand it. Like I understand it's for kids. On top of that as well, like the story was very I don't want to say like it was very easy to follow, obviously, more the storyline, but it was just like, I don't know, it felt very generic and it felt really slow. The pacing was one thing where I'm like, why are
we spending all this time getting permits? The movie.
It didn't make sense to me. Like I understand the story. I get it 100%. We want to like tell these stories, but I was not impressed with it, unfortunately.
What do you think, David?
I think I liked it a little more than the two of you, but it's still like very like middle tier Pixar. And like you said, it's absolutely beautiful looking. And I also appreciate that it's like one of their weirder movies. And like I like that about it. But yeah, it's certainly not one of their better ones.
Yeah. It's interesting that it did have legs because what I wrote in my review, I said Elemental or Pixar currently makes concepts instead of stories. That I talked about their history of taking concepts and then crafting a story around it. And I said, unfortunately, in the last 10 years, the studio has abandoned their storytelling finesse in favor of artistic visions and overall concepts. While in theory, I love the idea of individual artistic visions and cultures being showcased, this only makes a lasting impression if the stories and characters around these concepts are memorable and well told. Sadly, this has not been the case. And anyway, I go into some examples that they have this concept for this world of elements. Now we have their latest film, Elemental, and is perhaps their greatest example of concept over story. As a result, I left underwhelmed and frankly bored. There are things to enjoy, particularly the stunning animation, but the story is just not compelling, nor are the characters. So, so there we go.
Yeah.
All right. So then next we had Transformers coming in at number 9. You were the only one, Manda, who had this on your list.
I knew it'd make it. I knew it.
Did either of you get to see this?
Hells yeah.
I did. Yeah. I thought it was great, and I'm not usually a fan of these movies. Like, I thought this is one of the best ones of the whole series, and I know most critics didn't like it.
Yeah, I checked out after I think Dark of the Moon, Transformers Dark. I fell asleep in the theater for that one and I'm like, I'm done. And then Bumblebee came out. I'm like, okay, give me a try. Like, I'll give it a try. And then I loved Bumblebee with Haley Steinfeld. I thought that was great. Nice, refreshing pace for the franchise. And I'm like, let's do Rise of the Beasts. And I liked it, but it was long. That thing did not need to be 2 hours and like 34 minutes. I'm like, they're fighting. Like, there was long. And then the little snippet, the post-credits scene, I'm like, what are we setting up here exactly?
Oh yeah, that was dumb. Yeah, that was stupid. So I gave it a 6 out of 10, so mild recommendation. That it was a passable blockbuster entertainment in my opinion. But yeah, too long. It was just very basic like blockbauster entertainment, but it was fine. Definitely. Yeah, I overall enjoyed it. I certainly liked the new cast with Anthony Ramos and Dominic Fishback. I think they were good, and they got a good voice cast as well. And so I said that the ending will probably be divisive, made me groan. But overall, this is a serviceable blockbuster, and I'll take that all day from this normally dismal franchise.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
So there we go. It's one of those movies that nobody will remember.
Exactly.
And they've already forgotten it.
Probably.
Yeah. All right. So then we have at number 8, we have Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, which both of you had at number 1. I had it at number 5.
Remember the Fred Willard gif? What happened?
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting situation. I do think that if they had released it like over Memorial Day,
yeah,
it would have done
Logically.
way better. They just got caught up in the Barbenheimer of it all, and it couldn't compare. And I saw it twice. I really enjoyed it, but I do think that it was very stupid. It was a very stupid plot, but it was very fun. I said in my review that I felt like it could just be labeled a reality show of like, let's watch Tom Cruise almost die. That really was the appeal for me.
It was a lot. There were a lot of stunts, which I loved, but
and normally that kind of spectacle is like not enough for me. Like I need the story. I'm a very story person, but they were so well done and so gripping. And I think it was the best car chase scene when they're handcuffed. I think I've ever seen in a movie.
That was awesome.
It was so good.
Yeah.
And so I did enjoy it. I had a fun time. Like I said, I saw it twice.
Yeah, no, it was still great, even if it didn't do as well as everybody wanted to.
Yeah.
And Manda joined me on piecing it together for an episode on it.
Yeah.
Good.
And it was a fun episode.
Check that out.
What do you guys think about, like, people have been talking with this and with Fast X, the whole 2-parter thing being a part of why these didn't do well. Yeah, and Spider-Verse. Yeah, like why people are maybe a little burned out on the idea, like, oh, I got to go watch this and it's not going to give me a full story.
Yeah. I don't know who decided that, like, not only are movies not long enough, they have to be like 3 hours long, but we need them to all be multiple parters. I'm not sure who decided that was a great idea. But yeah, I didn't mind it as much with Mission Impossible because I felt like most of the plot lines for that particular story, most of them I felt like were pretty I felt like it was a story. Whereas like Spider-Verse, it was clearly like we're stopping in the middle.
Right.
Which was fine. Yeah. I was fine with, but I don't know. I felt like enough of a conclusion. I didn't really care, and I didn't really care about the story anyway in Mission Impossible. So, like, some people were so upset about certain character deaths, and I was just like, I don't care about these people at all.
I cried. I just want to say that I cried.
I have no attachment to this franchise, like emotionally. I know other people were very upset.
Honestly, yeah. Like it shouldn't have happened. But for me, I think like you said, it has a concrete ending. It's not a cliffhanger. I don't consider Dead Reckoning Part 1 ending in a cliffhanger whatsoever. I think it was just like, this is the end of this film, and it wrapped it up nicely. Whereas Spider-Verse and Fast X, in my brain, I was trying to figure out when they were going to stop it. Like when they were gonna, like, the credits were gonna roll. Like I was trying to think ahead. I'm like, okay, but where are they gonna end it? Whereas with Dead Reckoning Part 1, I was just riding the wave, and I didn't think of it. And that's what makes like a really good Part 1. I think that's the big difference between the three of them. So I'm just bummed that we gotta keep waiting for Part 2 now. I'm hella bummed with that one, considering what's happening.
It's gonna be interesting to see what they do as far as budget and, you know, where they go from here, you know, with the next one. We had Dial of Destiny at 7, and I had that at I had it at 4, and Manda, you had it at 9.
Oh, I did,
yeah, on your list. And and so and you didn't have it at all, David.
No, I think I thought it was gonna like just narrowly miss it or something. I don't know.
I mean, it's interesting because I didn't particularly care for it. I thought that it was very basic and bland, and I thought the opening, some people didn't like the de-aging, but I thought it looked great and I was entertained. I thought it was classic Indiana Jones, but then just the rest of the story and why they had this kid, and and all these car chases, and I'm like, this isn't a car chase franchise. Why are we doing this? and like, talk about wasting Antonio Banderas. Like, are you kidding me? Was that like a bet or something? I've
so
never
mad.
Like, this is Zorro, and he's like nothing in your movie. I can believe that. It was not great, but just like basic. I did think it would do better than it did, because I thought that it seemed like, okay, this is like crowd pleasing. But yeah, nobody was really interested. And I mean, Disney has just had this horrible year, and this could be one of the biggest money losers like ever, with how expensive it was to make. And
which is crazy considering it's on this top 10 list of box office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know
that's
how
true.
it's there. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know how it's there because like everyone hated Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Like that did not do well.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I think it's a good 15 years after it, like roughly from that one. So there's like no traction on Indiana Jones, period.
Yeah.
So I don't know how the hell it made this money. I don't get it. But I liked it. I just felt
you had
like
fun with it. Yeah.
I had fun with it, but if it felt repetitive.
Yeah.
And then every time they would get a clue, they would just lose it within like the next moment. And I'm like, this is why it's 2 hours and 43 minutes. Like, this is like why the length is there.
Well, and I personally think it would have been a more interesting ending if he had stayed.
Yes, 100%.
I really do. Like, he's an archaeologist. He's gonna want to stay. That could have been like interesting. And I don't know. It's weird. Yeah. What did you think, David?
I loved the beginning and I loved the end. The middle is just so much unnecessary stuff happens, but overall I really liked it though. It made my number 10 at the mid-year top 10. I'm sure, it'll drop quite a bit, by the time we get to the end of the year, but yeah, I really had a lot of fun with it. It was better than I expected.
Oh, okay. Well, next up we have the movie. I think because I went to the movie premiere is the reason why it's this underdog hit. Everybody saw it, and I went to the premiere, and then they all went and saw Sound of Freedom because I went to the premiere. It's true. I went to the premiere, and yeah, this is very interesting because it's this movie that Disney basically gave away. And then it finally got released, but it got released under the strategy, which a lot of people were really critical of, because they're saying, oh, there's theaters that are sold, but no people in them, which I don't know if that really bared out very often. I certainly, when I was working at the movie theater, I saw a lot of people getting Sound of Freedom tickets. But I actually kind of admired them for coming up with a new way to like sell movie tickets, like this new strategy. I mean, that's kind of hard to do, that we've been selling movie tickets the same way since we have movies, and to come up with a new strategy, a new way, I thought was kind of impressive and interesting. I thought the movie was pretty good. It's a little too long. And they painted and I got so much flack for this from its defenders, even though I recommended the film. But people that I felt like they painted the lead guy as just like being without flaw and perfect, and it was like him versus the entire Colombia mafia, and like a little more nuance I think could have been good. But overall, I thought it was a pretty interesting, entertaining movie, considering the subject matter is so tough. I know it's very complicated in politics and all that, but I did recommend the film. And I mean, it's kind of sad that like you think child trafficking would be the one subject that we could all kind of get around. It's like, no, of course not. But did either of you end up seeing it?
No.
Okay. Yeah, they had the premiere here, and I had worked with Angel Studios before on The Chosen. I mean, I enjoyed that show, and so I kind of worked with them. So that's why they invited me to come to the premiere. So I had no idea that it would become this big like touch point. I thought, oh, I'm going to support this little indie.
Right.
Anyway, so that was very interesting. Anyone who had that on their predictions list, they are amazing. Because
I'm
I
sure
don't think
Jim Caviezel did.
I don't think even the filmmakers expected it to beat Mission Impossible.
That's wild. It's wild. Unreal.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Pilot Podcast. My name is BJ.
And my name is Me Too, and we promise this promo is worth it, so please don't skip ahead.
We're two judgy friends who put our judgmental skills to work for you. We review the pilot episodes of new and popular shows and shows that our listeners request to answer your question, should I watch this?
Look, a lot of us are spending a lot more time at home, and yes, we should be reading and trying new projects and enriching ourselves, but does anything beat binging a great show?
Let us take the guesswork out of deciding what your next show will be. Tune in to The Pilot Podcast at thepilotpodcast.com.
So then next we had The Little Mermaid, which I predicted at number 1. I did not think that movie would be as controversial as it was and be as divisive as it was. And I just thought, boy, it's gonna make a ton of money, and it just did okay. And then you had it at 7, Manda, and then David had it at 6. So, yeah. So you were close there. I actually ended up enjoying it. Like it all the things that I expected to be bad were bad. So maybe low expectations helped. But yeah. I thought that Haley was so good, and she's such a good singer. Oh my gosh. And that's not always a thing with these remakes. You think about Emma Watson and her singing. So they actually got a good singer, which I really appreciated. And I thought that the Eric was great. I loved him. He was dreamy to me. And their chemistry, I'm like, why weren't the promotion, instead of that terrible CGI and some other things, why was it just them? The two of them together.
I know, they had such great chemistry. Like their friendship was ridiculous the entire time. Even like watching interviews and stuff, I'm like, it's gold right here.
Yeah.
Like, what were you guys doing?
It was by far the best part of the movie, to me at least, was their chemistry together. And that should have been the like full catalyst for it. Was the best part about the film. The scuttlebutt took me to a dark place.
But
it was tough.
I said it in every other sentence after I watched it because it was just stuck in my head. Lin-Manuel Miranda, it's your fault.
Yeah, the low point for Lynn.
Literally, of all songs, the scuttlebutt is just going to be there.
But what did you think of it, David?
I actually didn't see it yet.
Oh, you didn't see it? Okay.
No, I know it just hit Disney Plus, right?
Yeah.
So I'll get around to it before the end of the year, but yeah, I haven't gotten a chance.
It's not that bad.
It's not.
This is the greatest of endorsements I know.
Yeah.
In the world of these,
we all thought it would be terrible, so that's a great endorsement.
Yeah. So. In the world of these remakes, it's probably like 3 or 4.
Literally top 3 for me.
Yeah.
Totally agree. I mean, for me, the only downside was that my boy Flounder was just done dirty.
That was very bad.
And I'm like, I watched the animated one right after I watched the live action. And I'm like, Flounder had more lines. Flounder was more involved.
Yeah.
But because everything was on land, like they just completely forgot about Flounder. And I'm like, but he's just the cutest thing ever. Like, why are we getting rid of him? Like, why? But
and the CGI was terrible, and Javier Bardem was really bad. And it didn't make sense the way they staged Under the Sea. That didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Why are they talking about playing all the instruments and yet they don't have them as any instruments? Like it. So that was dumb. I like Eric's new song just because I'm so into him, but the song itself.
I cried. I literally teared up. I'm like, what is wrong with me today? I'm like, you should not be making me emotional, but my gosh.
But all her sisters looked terrible. I mean, like I said, everything that I expected to be bad was bad.
Yeah, it's mainly the CGI. This may be a hot take. I did not like Melissa McCarthy as Ursula.
No.
At all.
And
yes,
I agree. And the thing I've realized about these remakes is that they are taking out almost all the humor from the original properties, and that's their way of sort of like modernizing them. And I mean, if you think about it, I mean, obviously they were going to get rid of the chef. We knew that going into The Little Mermaid, but they took out almost all the funny lines from Ursula. Almost all of them were gone. And unless you consider Scuttlebutt an upgrade, that's the only humor they added. But even like at the very beginning when they have like the tears of the mermaid, you know, whatever quote, like I just realized I'm like every single one of these. You think about Alice in Wonderland, almost all the humor gone. If you think about even in Beauty and the Beast, they have to have her like have the Black Plague and you know, all this stuff. Like, that's kind of Disney's strategy is we're going to take out almost all the humor from these. I mean,
yeah,
and yeah,
make
So
it darker.
weird.
Yeah, I don't get it.
Weird. All right. So then at 4 we have Oppenheimer. And so both of you did not have this on your top 10.
I know.
I'm the only one.
No.
I had it
I
at
was
8.
waiting. I was like, let me see on my list. It was like 15th for me. 15th, I put Oppenheimer.
Yeah, I had it at 8. But yeah, we'll talk more with Barbie, but the whole Barbenheimer phenomenon was just very interesting. I think there's going to be a PhD thesis is done on Barbenheimer.
Oh yeah.
Going forward, because the you know, I've always been fascinated about the psychology of crowds and what makes people get in line for something, or what makes people like get involved in a movement or a mob, or I just think it's fascinating, like the mental things that happen. And you just think the fact that these two such wildly different movies were happening the same weekend made people want to see both because you wanted to be a part of the conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And it was a really fun time between the movies themselves and just going to the movies and all the memes online and all of it. Like it really, everything just fed it into one another, you know?
It was. And for Oppenheimer, I think that it was, I did recommend the film. I give it a 7 out of 10. I think it was very well made. I think the Trinity sequence was very gripping, very well done. I think all the performances were good. I didn't feel emotionally moved by the piece. To me, it left me a little cold, a little flat. But it was interesting and I enjoyed it. As far as I thought I had my issues with some, particularly the women characters and some other things. But overall, I thought it was interesting. I'm glad I saw it. It just didn't like inspire me or move me, or it was no Gran Turismo. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Nolan's gonna come after you.
What do you think of it, David?
I actually loved it. I'm usually not that big on Nolan. I find his movies like I always find him exciting as a filmmaker, but his movies always kind of leave me cold.
Yeah.
And this is one of my favorite Christopher Nolan films. I pretty much loved everything about it. We did a live episode of piecing it together on it, and like there in the movie theater, and you'd think after 3 hours, like I'd be like ready to, you know, go to sleep, but no, we were up there, you know, talking about the movie, and it just inspired so much great conversation. And I thought it was really well done, and I'm glad that it was a big hit for him.
Yeah. I mean, it for a movie that's a lot of board meetings and a lot of testimonies and things, I actually wasn't bored as much as I was worried I would be.
Yeah.
So Manda, what do you think?
It's my favorite movie of the year, and it dethroned Dead Reckoning Part 1 for me. Oppenheimer blew me away. Each hour, because it's 3 hours on the dot. It's 3 hours. Each hour was better than the last for me. I found it really. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, do either of you see it on film?
I actually did not know, because of our screening. It was just like a regular screening of the film.
Ours we got to see it in 35 millimeter, but I didn't get to see it in the IMAX 70 millimeter.
I saw it in IMAX 70 because it's literally my local theater. Thankfully, 5 minutes away from my house has it. It's one of the only IMAX theaters that we have in the GTA. So I was like, thank God. But yeah, I loved it. I was really, really happy to see Robert Downey Jr. In a meaty role again, because I feel like people forgot not that he wasn't talented in the 11 years that he was playing Iron Man. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it was really nice and refreshing to see him in something like this. And to be honest, he's like my pick for supporting actor this year. And not that I want to talk Oscars, but I was really, really happy with his performance. So
I thought he was good. I thought everybody did a good job with their roles.
yeah.
And yeah, it was a good movie. It's definitely one I would recommend to most anybody to just because I think it makes interesting choices, and I think it's an interesting film. And so yeah. All right. So then at 3, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And I actually thought this was excellent. One of the better Marvel entries in a while. And I wasn't a big fan of the second Guardians, so I was going in kind of maybe low expectations also helped. But I was pretty moved. I mean, talk about emotional. I mean, Rocket. Oh my gosh. Yeah, for the most of it, the villain was super scary. I thought the music worked. Everything you want in Guardians film basically worked. I kind of have a theory that the post-credit scene was changed after all this Jonathan Major stuff, because because it doesn't really make sense. Like, what? Like, who's mowing the lawn? I think that there was something else planned there that had to do with Kang. And then they changed it last minute with this Jonathan. I have nothing to back that up, just my own speculating. Because it didn't make any sense to me. It was like, what? That's not even a joke. What's going on?
Yeah, it was weird.
Yeah. It was like, and how funny would that have been if Kong had been mowing the lawn in this alternate dimension? That would have been a funny joke. So I don't know. I just have a theory. If not that, it was something else that they changed, because it didn't make any sense. But other than that, I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. It's probably the best mainstream thing that Disney has released this year.
100%. I totally agree. I cried from beginning to end. And I knew from the posters, I'm like, Rocket's either dying or the team is dying, because the way like the perspective kept changing, and it was either him by himself or like the team without him. So I was like, Rocket's doing something. But I'm really happy that he has his time to shine in this movie. I think Bradley Cooper has been underappreciated as the voice of Rocket Raccoon. He's one of my favorite characters. Yeah, I thought it was really well done. A lot of the Marvel projects have not hit for me. I've been really underwhelmed by all of them for the past 2 years, which is really sad to say because there's been so many. But this was such a bright spot to wrap up the Guardians. And I think, I don't want to say they've exhausted the characters, but it was their time to go. Like,
it's definitely the best thing that Marvel has made since Loki, for sure. If not even better, maybe since WandaVision.
Yep, totally agree.
What did you think, David?
Yeah, I agree with both of you. It's the best thing Marvel's done in years. I obviously haven't watched any of the TV shows, so I'll go since Endgame. But it really surprised me, and I also didn't really like Guardians 2, which I know everybody else seems to love. But so I maybe had a little bit of low expectations, but going in, I was just blown away. I loved it on pretty much every level, and one of my favorite superhero movies, really.
Yeah. It was really good.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
And number 2, we had Spider-Verse, and this is the ones that Manda and I got right. And then you had it at 3, so you were close, David. Yeah. We were all pretty close on that. And unbelievable, incredible. The animation just blew me away. Not only did you have unique animation on every single frame, but you had multiple styles of animation going on at the same time in the same frame. So you'd have a background that was 2D and with an anime character in front of it with another character next to him who's like a punk rock style, and then you'd have another, like, it was just like, oh my gosh, you'd have a Lego character, and it just blew me away, the animation. And I thought the story had a lot of heart. Yes, it ended midway, but I knew that going into it. I guess a lot of people didn't know that, but I knew that it was a part one going into it, so it didn't really bother me that much. I do think that the middle, when he's at the like training center for Spider-Man, that gets a little exposition heavy. Gets a little, if I was gonna fault it, it's like, okay, we're talking a lot. But I still overall just loved it. I thought it was amazing. What do you think, Manda?
I loved it. I think it's just as good as the first one. The animation, as you said, no one's doing it like Sony Animation in this particular case for comic book films. I want more comic book films to be animated for like the general audience, and not just like they release it on DVD or streaming. Like, I literally want it on the big screen because there's so much you can do, as we saw. Loved it. Loved everything about it.
What's exciting is animation is taking these IPs and using them as a jumping off point to do something interesting and exciting and creative. Exactly. I'm just loving seeing that. It's been such a strong year for animation. Even the stuff that I was like, even something like Elemental, which I was on, it still was like beautiful and interesting. And like, if that's the low point, and like Super Mario, which was also kind of meant on, like, if that's the low point, like, we have a great year.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah. David, what did you think of it?
I liked it a lot. Maybe not as much as the two of you, but I certainly sitting there in the theater, I mean, the visuals are incredible, and just kind of just your head's just spinning while you're watching it. And it's amazing for that. I will say I didn't end up doing an episode on it, and but I was talking to someone about doing it, and I was thinking back to it, and I was like, I don't remember what the hell happened in this movie. Like, it kind of all just kind of went away. So
yeah, no, that is true. I kind of feel the same way, actually. That because I haven't seen it a second time because it's so long. So yeah, I see that. Well,
it's a cool experience though. For sure.
Well, movie I have seen twice is the number one. It's Barbie. And I don't think anybody expected Barbie to be number one and to make it by such a large amount. It made $612 million. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse made $381. That's how, that's
a big gap.
Unbelievable.
Isn't it the biggest domestic release in Warner Brothers history? Didn't I read that?
Something like that. Yeah, I remember hearing that. Yeah.
It beat The Dark Knight from what I remember reading. So
yeah.
I guess so we both had it, Manda and I both had it at 10.
Yeah.
And you didn't have it at all.
No. Even though I thought it would be great and I thought that it would do well, I just didn't think it would be top 10 even. So
unbelievable. For me, I do think the movie is kind of messy. It's got a ton of ideas, and it's got a lot going on, and it doesn't all work. But I do really appreciate kind of the themes and what it was trying to tackle about the way that we label each other and the way that we judge each other. And once Ken and Barbie actually started talking and listening to each other, then that's when they both felt understood. And that I think that it was calling out to me when the one girl calls Barbie a fascist at the beginning. To me, that wasn't that different than the whole patriarchy thing going on. Like, I think that Greta was trying to talk about these labels that we put on people, and we judge people that we don't even know. And if we just talked to each other, then we could actually like function together a little bit better. So that's what I took out of the movie. I just appreciated that it was so weird and interesting and different. And when I saw it both times, I got different things out of it. And obviously visually. And I really also just appreciated the fact that it was trying to validate traditional femininity and traditional womanhood and sisterhood. And that any version of being a woman is valid and should be supported and loved. And for so long, it was like the only thing that we got at the theater was the like kick butt action strong woman. That was it. There was no other way to be strong. And so to have this movie that encouraged all different kinds of femininity and womanhood, I just really appreciated it. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I really did enjoy it, even though I recognize that it's not perfect. But I know that you weren't as big a fan, Manda, of it. You were more mixed on it.
Everything that you've said about like womanhood, I was like all for it. I teared up at the monologue. Everything to do with like women and feminism and in this film I loved, because Greta is just so good with writing such a sharp screenplay and putting, you know, female stories at the forefront. Like I love her for that. But like you said, it's very messy. I think once they left Barbie Land, that's when like I was so confused with what was happening, what they were trying to do. I felt the commentary was a bit too on the nose regarding the patriarchy. And I'm like, I understand you're trying to teach them, but at the same time, like it was just too dumbed down for my liking, I guess. Like, I don't know.
But I don't think the movie was anti-man.
No, like not at all.
I think the movie was about lazy label making and lazy feminism and lazy, you know, like, I mean, he sings a whole song advocating for himself, you know, like, I mean, but I do think that the script could have been a little bit tighter and there were things that could have been better. It's, you know, sometimes you just like messy movies, but yeah, I get what you're saying too.
It's a lot of concepts, but I can commend her for trying to put everything into one nice little like present for everybody.
Yeah. That's why I think all these imitators that are definitely going to come out, they're not going to work. Because this movie was weird and strange and it shouldn't have been successful, but it was. I mean, it's true. I mean, what did you think, David, of it?
I loved it. It's one of my favorite movies of the year. And Rachel, I read your review when it came out, and like, I think like what you were just saying there about like Greta trying to really talk about like the labels that we put on each other and all that stuff. I think that is so much more important than what a lot of other people are maybe getting out of it. And that's great, you know, love it for whatever reason you want. But I think that is the main thing. And I think that's just brilliant. And like to use, like, you know, the thing is, yes, some of the messaging maybe feels on the nose, but I think it's kind of a starting point to get to somewhere else. Like it's like a thing we all know, we've all been talking about the last 4 or 8 or much longer years, and like, you know, with everything with politics. And so it's like almost taking that and using it as a launching pad. And you can't control what everybody's gonna think about it, like the anti-man stuff and all that, like you just can't. But like, you know, at the same time, I think that it's just an amazing movie that, you know, did so many things that we didn't really expect and ran with it, and is incredibly weird and silly and ridiculous, and Ryan Gosling is awesome. So and I'm wearing my I Am Knuff shirt.
Yay!
I should have worn my Barbenheimer shirt. I forgot. Well, very good. I guess one other thing we could talk about really quick before we finish is just how phenomenally The Flash bombed. You both had it on your list, 3 and 2.
Yeah. Who knows?
I mean, especially with the buzz coming out of CinemaCon. I thought the movie, I did end up going fresh on it. I think it's like I hated everything with the multiverse in it, but I did think that scene when he says goodbye to his mother, that moved me, and that was enough emotion to give it a 6 out of 10, mild recommendation. And I thought that Michael Keaton actually was pretty fun. I mean, I was expecting him to just be a cameo for a few seconds. The fact he actually had like a character, and so I did enjoy the film with its many flaws, but and I thought that the whole Christopher Reeve things was gross. That was disgusting to me.
Yeah.
So it's not a great movie by any means, but I am surprised that it bombed as bad as it did.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I had it at number 2. But I certainly wasn't like looking forward to it or anything, and it was in a lot of ways worse than I expected. But I also, like, I didn't hate it because Michael Keaton is just so much fun, and it's
Mhm.
hard not to at least enjoy his scenes. And as terrible as that multiverse scene was, you know, I'm a dumb guy, Nicolas Cage in the Superman costume. How could I not like at least applaud for that
But it's
3
just
seconds of
crazy.
terribleness?
When there
right?
are two actors currently living who have been Superman in films, and so that you could have used, and it would have been way funnier to have Brandon Routh there. That would have made that would have actually been a good joke that would have made sense because he was in a
So bad.
failed like if you especially if
Yeah.
you're gonna have the Nicolas Cage Superman that didn't even exist, like how funny would that have been? You have Brandon Routh in there. Like, so to have this Christopher Reeve, especially considering that he had his accident, and like it was just gross. That
It's
was
so
gross.
distasteful. Yeah.
Yeah.
I absolutely hated the Flash. I hated
really bad.
from the freaking babies in the microwave
Oh, that was bad.
within the first 5 minutes to Andy Muschietti saying, you know, the CGI
ridiculous.
looking that bad was intentional.
Oh
Like
God, yeah.
Ridiculous.
I haven't been that mad walking out of a movie in a very long time, because they also made Barry Allen really dumb, and he's supposed to know the Speed Force through and through, and he just didn't know anything. Like moving a can of sauce is apparently gonna save your mother and not create any other like drama in the multiverse. Apparently.
Yeah.
My thing with the Flash, and I said this in my review, is the fact that like you had such a more compelling story and trying to figure out who stabbed his mom, like who actually did that to her. And I'm like, you could have gone that route, and I think it would have been more darker. And you could have used Reverse Flash instead of the Dark Flash it was just, there were choices. I'm like, it's right there.
Yeah.
In the material, it's right there from the comic. Like, what are you doing trying to change it? But anyways, there was
a Hallmark movie this for Christmas in July where the character gets to go back and live this alternate life, this alternate path, as she'd been more brave after her mother dies.
Mm-hmm.
And in the alternative life, her mother is still living. She sees her mother again, and I'm not kidding. I was like buckets of tears. And when she sees her mother again, and the actress did an incredible job, and then she has to say goodbye to her mother, and I'm like, I shouldn't have been so nice to the Flash, because Hallmark just did this way better.
See, it hits you after. You're like, what did the Flash actually do?
But there is something about that, like getting a chance to say goodbye.
Yeah.
And those themes of like grief and loss that almost always works for me.
Yeah.
And it almost always gets me. And but yeah, it's like Hallmark outdid DC this summer.
Amazing.
Take Me Back for Christmas. It's really good. I will stand it by it. It was a very good movie. But anyway, yeah, that was fascinating. And I just wonder what the heck they were putting all the drinks of the CinemaCon people.
What was it? I need to know who. Did
they hand out $100 bills with the programs? That's what I wonder.
Seriously,
freaking need names.
No sense.
God.
Welcome to the movie. Here you go.
Oh my gosh.
But there we go. That is the summer. So let us know what you think of all of these movies that we talked about, the ones that didn't make it, the ones that did. We'd love to hear your lists and how you fared, if you fared better than any of us. We'd love to hear that in the comments. And thank you both so much. I hope to have you back on soon, because I just love talking with you too. You're so fun. And Manda, where can people find you?
Yeah, you guys can always follow me over at AMX NDA Reviews on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. And you can check out my website, candidxcinema.com.
Great. And David, what about you?
You can check out Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on social media at Piecing Pod. And I'm putting out a lot of music right now, so check out by David Rosen as well.
Yeah. And if you enjoy the little jingle at the beginning of this video, that was written by David.
Absolutely.
And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. Also check out the Hallmarkies podcast. We are gearing up. Believe it or not, we're going to be starting Christmas coverage in a couple of weeks. We're going to be doing our previews. And the first Hallmark Christmas movie starts on October 22nd. So It's happening. So get ready. So check that out. And also, if you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews 5 stars to all of our podcasts. That would really help us out. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. That would really help me out. And we have the Patreon group and merch store. So check that out. And thanks so much to both of you. And we'll talk to y'all later.